Between 2012 and 2017, disgraced Assistant District Attorney Robert Biancavilla accepted over $108,000 in bonus money without legislative approval. Biancavilla associated with the infamous 6 New York crime family, alongside former prosecutor Christopher McPartland, former District Attorney Thomas Spada, and former Police Chief James Burke, who was sentenced to 46 months in prison for the beating of Christopher Loeb, denies any wrongdoing. Gregory Vita, who was a crucial part in the early release of alleged Colombo Wonder boss John Sonny Franzese, hired Biancavilla in 1990 to represent him after being arrested for possession of cocaine under a quarter of a gram. Charging Gregory $7,500, Biancavilla also charged Gregory's uncle $1,800 for court transcripts he received for free and illegally billed the 18B assigned counsel program. Thanks to the Freedom of Information Act, it was revealed Biancavilla accepted bribes in the form of checks from Gregory's mother, Laura Annetta, who was a testifying witness against Gregory. Sitting down with Gregory to discuss his case is highly esteemed Madison Avenue attorney Kenneth J. Aronson, who has represented the likes of Fat Tony Salerno, John Sonny Franzese, and James Jimmy Coonan.
You've been helping me and representing me since 1997. Time goes by pretty quick.
1997?
Since 1997. Yeah, that's when I first met you.
What were your first thoughts when he contacted you about representing Sonny? Was representing Sonny something different to you?
I was trying to expand a little bit and move on to the Easties for diversification. Frankly, I have represented similarly situated people.
Not that old, though.
Well, I put down that he was the oldest federal prisoner. But someone is 99. How many people, how much good of an exaggeration it could be?
Yeah. At the same time, I think that he was a very old man going to trial. His son was testifying against him. His son was a drug addict. His son had a long record, like 35 arrests and what have you. I think that the prosecution, the FBI, felt that there's a chance that they might feel sorry for him. He's 94 years old going to trial.
Well, that's what I'm saying. He was already in his 90s. The judge sentenced him. He knew he was, an elderly person.
So anyway,
I must say, he was at the prison in Massachusetts. It's really a hospital prison. And I spoke to the caseworker, the social worker, and she said, because he's not the only one there who tried to get the compassion. She said, he's in a wheelchair.
he can't see.
He was legally deaf. He
had
had
to
to
gown.
be wheeled by another. From the probation report, you just had to list all the stuff. If he got out, he couldn't commit certainly a violent crime.
But at the same time, I was at his sentencing, and and nobody else was at his sentencing, just me and his daughter. And the prosecutor said to him, "We're going to make sure." She said, "You killed like 80 people, and we're going to make sure that you die in jail." She said, "We're going to make sure you die in jail." And as you know, they opposed him getting out. The warden opposed him to getting out. Everybody was against him. I mean, you dropping those detainers really helped him.
Well, what happened was you're not eligible for the compassion release if you have any detainers.
What are detainers?
Detainers, I'll give you an example. Let's say you're serving a federal sentence, and New York had convicted him of a separate crime. So they file a detainer with the federal facility. When he gets released on the federal sentence from federal custody, instead of them opening up the door and letting him out, they notify New York, and New York would pick him up to serve that sentence. That would be a detainer. It could be an immigration detainer, that is, he's here illegally and after serving the sentence is going to be deported. The detainer we had here it related back to this old robbery case that he theoretically hadn't completed the sentence. He was sentenced, he would get out, he violated, go back, he got they added to the sentence, got out, went back, so that old robbery case, which went back to the 60s,
Yes,
memory's not,
yes, the 60s, yes.
it's not that great. That would be the detainers. So the first thing I had to do is lift it. Otherwise, we're not even eligible. And
Then he had an
wrote-
immigration one too.
I don't remember.
Yeah, there was
immigration.
two. There was one for immigration, and you got rid of it or something. There was one for
Oh, you
immigration.
just used white out. I got
They
rid of
said he
it.
wasn't a citizen or something like that.
No, well, he's been here since.
Yeah, he's been here 100 years.
Yeah, basically.
That's good enough.
So we had to get rid of the detainer from an old robbery conviction, and we petitioned them, and they terminated it. So now we didn't have a detainer, so we couldn't apply for the compassion release. So that's what we had to do.
He was confident that, in having you represent him, because he met Prixie, right?
Yes.
In prison.
He said in Petersburg, Virginia.
You would know better.
Prior to that,
I didn't
too,
really have a lot of
when I told
contact with him. I just had to confirm he wanted me to represent him because I was going by his age, which, well, I told you nothing was easy. There are 3 different dates of birth,
Yeah.
but whether he was 97 or 99, his medical, which was documented in the probation report, and that basically was the compassion, his age. And he also, his daughter wrote a letter that he'd be staying with the daughter. She was an
Yes.
educator, a teacher.
yeah, Lorraine. Yeah.
She was legitimate. And so we had a place to go. But he couldn't even get a halfway house because he was so handicapped. There's stairs.
He did. Wait, first of all, he did get him the halfway house. He got him off. He got him 6 months taken off his sentence.
Mhm.
The day before he was supposed to go into a halfway house, he took a bad fall in the prison. But even Mr. Aronson said that, how's he going to go in a halfway house? They don't have facility for a 100-year-old man.
It's not, he really needed more of a hospital setting. They have steps in these places. He's in a wheelchair. He needed someone to push the wheelchair. It wasn't really set up for someone. So it would have been, well, for the average person, it would have been a much better situation, but he really wasn't equipped to be there.
He was living at his daughter's house. It was a tough task for her.
There weren't a lot of volunteers to help, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I understand.
It's really a labor of love.
How did you first meet Jimmy Coonan? How did he come in contact with you?
And actually, the Larry Hockeiser, I was an associate with when we became partners. Larry had represented Mickey Featherstone in a prior case. And Coonan became friendly with Featherstone. So basically, when
It was a whole circle. They all were
it's
using
kind
it.
of interesting
Yeah.
that they act like it's almost a conspiracy, but this is the way. It's like Greg went to jail, and remember Collins, for example.
Yeah.
So he knew some. Was friendly with the mother, got in trouble. He recommended me. You know what I mean? So Featherstone recommended people. So you end up representing 5 or 6 of people in this, because that's how you get referrals. People.
You do a good job for somebody and
They say good things about you to other
Yeah.
people. So, but someone wants to put it together. It sounds like
like you were house
they're
counsel.
a gang and
Yes.
you were house counsel, but it's also interesting.
But at the same time, you were, like according to the book, you were friends with them. You went to their funerals, you went to their weddings, you went to their birthday parties. I mean, is that true?
Yeah, because you work with someone intensely on a case for a year and a half, 2 years. It's a bonding experience. I wouldn't be invited to many of those things. So that's
A lot of lawyers don't do that. No, I'm just telling you. I mean, that's what I like about you, and that's why I always recommend you to people, and everybody had good success or whatever.
we used to play Name That Tune. I would say, give the name of a deceased person. They said who killed him. No, I'm just joking. That was Name That Tune.
Well, I want to ask you about Greg.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a conviction in 1990 and had an arrest. I went home to get my belongings, and the police executed a search warrant for the exact time that I happened to be there. I wasn't even living there at the time I left home. I was 26. The police found $600 on my bed. That was once my bed. They searched the whole house.
It was a bedroom you shared with your brother.
A bedroom I shared with my brother. And then
Two beds, two dresses.
downstairs, in another room, there was a couch. And they found what they call cocaine residue. It was less than a quarter gram. It wasn't a sellable amount. It might have not even been a usable amount.
Traces of coke.
Yeah, just a little
and
trace.
I think there was a scale.
There was a scale on the kitchen table right under the light switch. I never touched it or whatever. So anyway, my mother and brother testified against me, like Sonny. His son testified against him. And I got convicted. I got 6 1/3 to 19 years. Here it is 30 years later, and Mr. Aronson put a brief in for me, an application to unseal my brother's criminal record. The judge said it was not there. I don't agree with him, and I'm still fighting the case. I had 2 lawyers that I paid, Robert Peck and Robert Biancavilla. Robert Biancavilla later went on to the district attorney's office in Suffolk County and became a deputy district attorney to Sparta. And that whole crew was corrupt, from Burke, the police officer, and Sparta and Biancavilla. These 2 lawyers, I paid them. And they took money from the 18B assigned counsel program, and I feel that, there was some kind of conflict there.
They were double dipping.
And my mother gave them money, then they
She
submitted.
was the main witness, or one of the 2 main witnesses, and they also were assigned by the court, so they got paid from the 18B panel. But I think you made a complaint. And
I made a complaint. I had proof that Biancavilla, before he even approached me to represent me, he submitted something to the courts to get my court transcripts for free. My uncle paid him $1,800 in a check. $1,800. He got the court transcripts for free. He signed for him, everything. There's a date that he got him and everything. They submitted vouchers for 18B assignment to get paid, to get these to get the transcripts for free. And it's just a disgrace. Now, you have to admit one thing. I know you don't like to, you're a very good lawyer, and I guess a lawyer like your caliber is not don't have to, put people down. But Nassau County is a lot different than a lot of other places. If I got arrested in Manhattan for a quarter gram of coke, or Brooklyn, even back in that time, do you think that I would have done 15 years in jail?
Well, I did say to you that the sentence for the amount of drugs was very high.
In 1994, I had a 440 motion submitted to the courts on
That's a motion to vacate a conviction, usually after the appeals are
on a
exhausted.
conflict of interest that my mother, who was the witness against me, she's right here, Laura Nettis, she gave a check to my lawyer for $9,800 about 5 or 6 weeks before my trial started. We subpoenaed the lawyer's records, and this check had come up. The judge had to go to the sentencing judge. He gave me a 57-page decision. We went to the appellate division. They gave me a 34-page decision. Now, those are very lengthy decisions, right?
Yeah.
I think the longer you have to explain something, the bigger the lie. My case was in most states in the United States, New York, Florida, Texas, whatever, and the Law Journal. Is that the cover of the Law Journal, or am I wrong?
Well, this would be the
First page?
like the first page. That's the like the New York Times. This would be the printing that they use for the New York Law Journal.
It was a very interesting case. Mother put son in prison for 19 years, pays off his own attorney, a little bit amount of cocaine, a 19-year sentence. I was a first-time felony offender. My case was printed in the Law Journals, probably nationwide. 8,218 words. It's very lengthy just to be in the Law Journal, all these pages here. I believe this. I believe I shouldn't even have to be here with Mr. Aronson right now fighting my case. I think they should have thrown it out a long time ago. I don't even think I should have went to jail for one day or anything. I've never seen anybody go to a maximum security prison for a quarter gram of coke. First time a felony offender. And I've been upstate 7 times with the parole violation, 7 times. I'm continue to fight this case, and I think something good will come out of it. But at the same time, I even blame the media, because if you live like in a town and they have Newsday or whatever, and you tell them, well, I have a story for you. I had a lawyer represent me. I paid him over $10,000. Here's the proof. My mother also gave him a check for $9,800, and to boot, he submitted vouchers for 18B assigned counsel program. So he was sitting on a fence taking money from everybody, and they don't print this. I went to the Bar Association, the grievance committee. They review things, and they come back, no, there's nothing here. So that's why I'm here with Mr. Aronson.
I will say this, that the amount of drugs was very small, and the sentence was very long for that quantity of drugs. And if you ask me, how could this be, I could give you 2 explanations, which
I could give you
may
one
or may
too.
not be true.
I could give you one before you say anything.
You had some connection
Exactly.
to Sonny, a taint of organized crime.
You know, an author that me and you contacted, and he looked at some of the paperwork. He wrote a book called Quitting the Mob. It was Michael Franzese's first book he wrote, called Quitting the Mob, in 1990. He looked at everything, and he told me, you were guilty by association, like he's saying. And I believe it, because I was just friends with Sonny's daughter, and they asked the family to bail me out. I had no idea, that they were going to bail me out. I was calling up every aunt, uncle, and this and that, and they're like, we're not going to put up a house, we don't have that money, are you crazy, whatever. And then all of a sudden they put up to $30,000 with a house and what have you. When I went on parole, I was in a special unit. I had 3 parole officers assigned to me and a few people that were in there. One time, my parole officer, when she called me in, she got up for a minute, and I leaned over, and it says, Greg Vita, alias Vito, V-I-T-O, meets with John Sonny Franzese, underboss of the Colombo crime family. So I was in there for, I guess, people who knew people. I wasn't an organized crime person. I was working in a union. I was a boxer. It was just a bad situation, But I also believe that, if you're going to be a prosecutor, be a fair prosecutor. I believe my prosecutor reworded stuff to make it look like an intent. I don't believe it was an intent to sell there or anything. Do you?
Well, there were no specific sales alleged, but
No.
I guess they see a scale and packets of your mother's testimony.
They said they used a Molyneux theory that wasn't really used that much or whatever, where they would let the testimony of uncharged crimes into the trial to convict me. So my mother and brother said that he was a drug dealer. He was, people were coming and going, people were giving him money. The lawyer asked him, there was a question or something. They said to him, how many people came to the house a day to buy, cocaine from your brother? And he said something like 50 to 100. And he said, what about the weekend? And he said there was more. And he said something like 500 to 1,000 people. And the judge said, how many people? And he must have wrote my sentence down. Now, I lived in a small town. It was like Mayberry, and Andy Griffith show. There was no way that 20 people even came to the house a day or whatever.
You would need about 5 policemen to direct traffic.
Where was the police officers? It was like ridiculous. Then,
but this is where the judge could make an inference in the sentencing that there was large-scale selling going on, if you wanted to make that inference.
one more unusual aspect was this, and I'm only going to just lay out the facts. On 9/27/1990, I'm sentenced to 19 years in prison for this. 6 1/3 to 19. I got a year for the possession. I got 6 1/3 to 19 years for the intent to sell, which was a B felony. A month later, my brother, and you've seen the papers, everybody's seen the papers or whatever. A month later, my brother was in a club. He threw a beer mug, hit a girl in the face, gave her 50 stitches. The glass flew off the girl and gave somebody else 13 stitches in their face. Somebody else 11 stitches in their neck. There was other assaults that were involved in this too. According to the report or whatever, somebody said to him, you know, you're a piece of shit, you put your brother in jail and what have you. And he got mad, he was drunk, he threw a beer bottle. I'm sure he didn't mean it, but still, he has to pay for his crime. They did nothing to him. They gave him no bail. The judge gave him a $75
No,
fine.
that means he was released on his own recognizance.
I get a $30,000 bail for a quarter gram of coke.
There's no bail.
He leaves a bloodbath in a bar and he gets no bail. Like, where's the justice to that, you know?